Welcome everyone to this presentation on supply network design. Today we'll explore how organizations can structure and optimize their supply networks to enhance efficiency and competitiveness. We will cover key topics such as the supply network perspective, network configuration, location decisions, and capacity planning. Now, no operations exist in isolation. Every operation is part of a larger and interconnected network of other operations. This supply network will include suppliers and customers. It will also include suppliers, suppliers to customers, and so on. At a strategic level, operations managers are involved in designing the shape and form of their network. Network design starts with setting the network's strategic objectives. Now, this helps the operation to decide how it wants to influence the overall shape of its network, the location of its operation, and how it should manage its overall capacity within the network. Here, we treat all these strategic design decisions in the context of supply networks. Now, before diving into details, let's highlight the key questions we aim to answer. The first one is, why should an organization take a total supply network perspective? Second, what is involved in configuring a supply network? Third, where should an operation be located? Fourth, how much capacity should an operation plan to have? Now, these questions will guide our discussion on effective supply network design. Now, this is the operations in practice about the Dell and their customer that is they called as their king of the supply network. Now, operations in practice about Dell is focused on network customer and centric approach. Now, Dell's supply network is shaped by customer needs, started by modifying pieces for better value, and then early business strategy outsourced component manufacturing to specialists. Now, they focused on coordinating activities for maximum customer value. And also, the direct customer sales model. Then they eliminated retailers to reduce cost and offer competitive prices. Now, this allowed Dell to gather customer insights and forecast demand. It enabled fast and efficient product delivery with minimal inventory. Now, what are the challenges in the changing market? Now, consumer preferences shifted towards design and in-store experiences. Dell's online sales or sales model became a disadvantage. Strategic adaptation and recovery expanded sales to over 10,000 retail stores. Now, it re-emphasized supply network alignment with customer expectations. Social media engagement and customer insights establish the social media listening command center, which monitors 25,000 plus daily posts and Twitter messages. It uses analytics to track trends, address concerns, and enhance service. It achieves a 99% customer satisfaction resolution rate. Now, converts over a third of online critics into brand advocates. Now, to summarize this, we understand and or Dell understand and adapt to customer needs, and they consider it as a critical for supply network success. The supply network refers to the system of interconnected suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, and customers involved in delivering a product or service. It includes both upstream, which is the supply side, and downstream, which is the demand side. Understanding this perspective helps business improve efficiency and adapt to market changes. Here, in the supply network perspective, there are two tiers of supplier. The first tier of suppliers, they directly supply the company with raw materials, parts, or services. The second tier suppliers, they supply goods or services to first tier suppliers but may also interact directly with the company. Now, companies must manage these supplier relationships to ensure smooth production. Now, let's proceed to the downstream or the demand side. In the first tier customers, direct customers served by the company. The second tier customers is served by first tier customers but may also receive direct supply from the company. Now, company needs to understand customer needs to improve demand forecasting and service quality. Now, there are two types of supply networks. The first one is immediate supply network. The direct suppliers and direct customers. The second is total supply network. It means that the entire chain of suppliers or suppliers and customers. In this figure 6.2, it illustrates the total supply network for two operations. First is a plastic homeware manufacturer. Now, on the demand side, it supplies product wholesalers who supply retail outlets. However, it also supplies some retailers directly, bypassing a stage in the network, not an uncommon situation. As product flows from suppliers to customers, orders and information flow the other way from customers to suppliers. It is a two-way process with goods flowing one way and information flowing the other. But do not think that only manufacturers can be part of supply networks. In the second illustration in figure 6.2, it shows a supply network centered on a shopping mall. It also has suppliers and customers who themselves have their own suppliers and customers. Now, why consider the whole supply network? Now, understanding competitiveness, the companies focus on immediate customers and suppliers but need to look beyond them. It also helps understand why customers and suppliers behave the way they do. Now, there are two options to understand end customers. The first one is rely on intermediaries like the customers and suppliers and suppliers. And second is look beyond immediate contacts to gather first-hand insights. Now, I want to highlight the importance of considering the entire supply network rather than focusing on individual operations in isolations. Now, not all operations are equal. Some processes have a greater impact on the overall network than others. The key contributors or the certain operations play a more significant role in ensuring that end customers receive what they need. For example, from the plumbing industry, wholesalers, also referred to as stockholders, are crucial players in the supply chain. Now, they act as intermediaries, ensuring that materials and products are readily available for retailers and end customers. Ensuring efficiency, suppliers must provide fast and reliable deliveries to wholesalers. This helps them effectively serve the customers at the end of the chain, strengthening the supply network by supporting key players in the supply network. We enhance the efficiency and reliability of the entire system, leading to better service and customer satisfaction. Understanding the critical links in supply network allows us to optimize operations, minimize disruptions, and maximize customer value. Now, let's focus on long-term issues within the supply network. A supply network is not static. It evolves based on changes in technology, consumer behavior, and market trends. Obsolescence is the supply network. Over time, some parts of a supply chain may become outdated. This can happen due to technological advancements or shift in customer preferences. The real-world example is traditional music stores were once an essential part of the music industry. However, with the rise of digital streaming services, their relevance declined significantly, forcing many out of business. The need for a long-term perspective. Now, businesses must actively monitor industry trends and be flexible in adapting to changes. This proactive approach helps in making informed decisions and staying ahead of potential disruptions. Competitive advantage is by considering long-term trends. Businesses can better anticipate supply chain disruptions, adjust their strategies, and maintain a competitive edge in the market. Now, looking at the bigger picture allows businesses to remain relevant, competitive, and prepared for future industry shift. Now, the supply network view is useful because it prompts three particular important design decisions. These are the most strategic of all the design decisions treated in this discussion. It is necessary to understand them at this point. However, because as well as having a particularly significant impact on the strategy of the organization, they set the context in which all other process design decisions are made. The three decisions are: the first one is how should the network be configured? Second, where should each part of the network be located, or the location decision? Third is what physical capacity should each part of the network have, or it is called as the long-term capacity management decision. Let's talk about configuring the supply network. Now, it is a critical aspect of supply chain management. What is supply network configuration? Now, it involves determining the overall pattern and structure of the supply network, including the placement of suppliers, manufacturers, distribution centers, and retailers. Now, why do you think it is important? Well, if a well-configured supply network is essential for optimizing efficiency, cost, and performance. Poor configuration can lead to delays, increased expenses, and inefficiencies in meeting customer demands. Strategic decisions or strategic considerations. Businesses must evaluate factors such as location, transportation routes, inventory management, and technology integration to design a supply network that supports long-term success. Configuring the supply network effectively ensures smoother operations, cost reductions, and improved service levels, making it a vital step in supply chain management. Now that we understand the importance of configuring the supply network, let's dive into the two main decisions that shape this configuration. The first one is network pattern and structure. This refers to the overall design of the supply network. It involves defining the arrangement, shape, and relationship of operation within the network. This includes how different entities, such as suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors, are interconnected. A well-structured network ensures smooth material flow, reduces inefficiencies, and enhances responsiveness to market demands. Identifying the roles and locations of key players in the network is essential to optimizing efficiency and cost effectiveness. Now, as we continue, we'll explore other crucial decisions in supply network configuration that influence long-term success. Continuing our discussion on supply network configuration, another key decision businesses must make is ownership and control of the network. How much of the supply network should a company own? Now, businesses need to determine the level of control they want over the supply chain. This impacts cost, efficiency, and strategic flexibility. Now, let's proceed with the outsourcing versus in-house production, also known as the do or buy decision. This involves choosing between outsourcing production to third-party manufacturers or keeping it in-house. Outsourcing can reduce cost but may lead to less control over quality and lead times. In-house production offers greater control but requires more investment. Vertical integration companies may choose to expand ownership within their supply chain. Like the backward integration means taking control of suppliers to secure raw materials and reduce dependency. Then the forward integration, which means controlling distribution channels to get closer to end customers. A well-executed vertical integration strategy can increase efficiency, reduce cost, and improve market. Now, in summary, deciding on ownership and control is critical for long-term supply chain stability and competitiveness. Now, let's discuss an important concept in supply network management, which is the reconfiguring a supply network. What does reconfiguration mean? Now, it involves modifying the network structure without necessarily changing ownership. This allows companies to adapt to market conditions while maintaining flexibility. Adjusting roles and relationships, businesses may redefine responsibilities within their supply network to improve coordination and efficiency. This could mean redistributing tasks among suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors to optimize performance. A common reconfiguration practice is supplier consolidation. One of the most widely used strategies is reducing the number of direct suppliers. This helps businesses streamline procurement, improve supplier relationships, and enhance efficiency. Stronger relationships with fewer suppliers can lead to better collaboration, improved quality, and cost saving. Now, in summary, reconfiguring a supply network helps businesses stay competitive, improve efficiency, and respond effectively to the changes in demand and supply condition. Now, another key concept in supply network management is disintermediation, or cutting out the middleman. What is disintermediation? It involves removing intermediaries from the supply chain, allowing businesses to deal directly with customers or suppliers. This can reduce cost, improve efficiency, and give companies more control over pricing and customer experience. Now, technology as a key enabler, the internet has significantly driven disintermediation, making it easier for customers to book flights, hotels, and rental cars directly instead of going through travel agents. E-commerce platforms also enable manufacturers to sell directly to customers, bypassing traditional retail stores. Now, challenges and consumer preferences. While direct purchasing offers greater flexibility and cost savings, some consumers still prefer bundled service for businesses must balance efficiency with customer preferences to ensure they provide the best value and service. Now, this intermediation helps businesses reduce cost, streamline operations, and enhance customer relationships, but it's important to consider customer needs when implementing this strategy. Now, let's explore an important concept in supply network, the coopetition, which is a blend of cooperation and competition. Now, what is coopetition? Now, it recognizes that businesses do not operate in isolation, but interact with various players in the supply network. Companies can compete in some areas while cooperating in others to create mutual benefits. The four key players in coopetition are the suppliers, which they provide raw materials or services necessary for production. Strong supplier relationships lead to better quality and reliability. Next is customers. They buy the products or services. Understanding customer needs and preferences helps businesses improve their offerings. Third is competitors. While they offer alternative products or services, sometimes businesses collaborate with competitors on shared goals such as industry standards or joint ventures. The fourth one is complementors. These are businesses that enhance a product's value when used together. For example, smartphone manufacturers and app developers work together to improve user experience. Now, why is coopetition important? It is important because it promotes innovation, improves efficiency, and expands market opportunities. Companies that strategically balance cooperation and competition can achieve long-term growth and success. Coopetition helps businesses leverage both partnerships and rivalry to create value in the supply network. Now, for example, also is the restaurant in the same area compete for customers but also attract more diners collectively. Now, the goal is to balance competition and collaboration to grow the market while maintaining a competitive edge. Now, let's proceed to outsourcing. Outsourcing, which is a key strategy on supply network management. What is outsourcing? Outsourcing involves transferring certain business activities to external providers to improve efficiency and cost savings. Many companies outsource to focus on core business functions while leveraging external expertise. Now, there are types of outsourcing. The first one is direct outsourcing. This relates to product-related activities. For example, a car manufacturer outsourcing the production with electronic components to specialized suppliers. The second is indirect outsourcing. This involves support functions that are not directly tied to production, such as IT services, human resources, and customer support. Now, why do you think companies outsource? First is cost reduction. External providers can often produce goods or services more cost effectively. Second is access to expertise. Companies can leverage specialized skills and technologies. Third is focus on core activities. By outsourcing non-core functions, businesses can focus on innovation and strategic growth. Considerations and challenges. While outsourcing offers many benefits, companies must also manage risks such as quality control, supply chain disruption, and data security. Now, selecting the right outsourcing partners and maintaining strong relationships is crucial for success. Now, again, outsourcing is an effective way for businesses to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance capabilities, but it requires careful planning and management. Now, in this slide, we'll focus on business process outsourcing or BPO. BPO is a specialized form of outsourcing. Now, what is business process outsourcing or BPO? Okay, BPO involves delegating administrative and support functions such as payroll, human resources, and customer service to external specialists. Many companies choose BPO to improve efficiency and focus on core business activities while leveraging expert providers for non-core functions. What are the key benefits of BPO? The first is the cost reduction. Outsourcing to specialized firms often reduces operational cost. Second, it improves service quality. BPO providers bring expertise and advanced technology, leading to better accuracy and efficiency. Third is flexibility. Companies can scale services up or down depending on demand. For example, many banks outsource credit checks to specialized agencies. This ensures faster processing, better accuracy, and regulatory compliance, allowing banks to focus on their primary financial services. Considerations and challenges. While BPO offers advantages, businesses must carefully select their outsourcing partners to ensure quality control and data security. Managing outsourcing relationships effectively is crucial to align business goals with service expectations. Overall, BPO is a valuable strategy for businesses looking to enhance efficiency, reduce costs, and improve service delivery while maintaining flexibility. Figure 6.3 illustrates the simplified supply network for the wind turbine power generation industry. Original equipment or equipment manufacturers or OEMs assemble the wind turbine nacelle or the nacelle houses, the generator, and gearbox. Towers and blades are often built to the OEM's specifications, either in-house or by outside suppliers. Installing wind turbines involves assembling the nacelle, tower, and blades on site, erecting the tower, and connecting to the electricity network. The extent of vertical integration varies by company and component. The three companies illustrated in Figure 6.3 have all chosen different vertical integration strategies. Company A is primarily a nacelle designer and manufacturer that also makes the parts. Company B is primarily an installer that also makes the tower and blades, but buys in the nacelle itself. Company C is primarily an operator that generates electricity and also designs and assembles the nacelles as well as installing the whole tower, but it outsources the manufacturer of the nacelle parts, tower, and blades. Whether it is referred to as do or buy, vertical integration or no vertical integration, in-house or outsourced supply, the choice facing operations is rarely simple. Organizations in different circumstances with different objectives are likely to take different decisions. Yet, the question itself is relatively simple. Even if the decision itself is not, does in-house or outsourced supply in a particular set of circumstances give the appropriate performance objectives that it requires to compete more effectively in its markets? For example, if the main performance objectives for an operation are dependable delivery and meeting short-term changes in customers' delivery requirements. The key question should be, how does in-house or outsourcing give better dependability and delivery flexibility performance? This means judging two sets of opposing factors. First, those which give the potential to improve performance and those which work against this potential being realized. Now, Table 6.1 summarizes some arguments for in-house supply and outsourcing in terms of its performance objectives. Now, although the effect of outsourcing on the operations performance objective is important, there are other factors that companies take into account when deciding if outsourcing an activity is a sensible option. For example, if an activity has long-term strategic importance to a company, it is unlikely to outsource it. For instance, a retailer might choose to keep the design and development of its website in-house, even though specialists could perform the activity at less cost because it plans to move into web-based retailing at some point in the future. Nor would a company usually outsource an activity where it had specialized skills or knowledge. For example, a company making laser printers may have built up specialized knowledge in the production of sophisticated laser drives. This capability may allow it to introduce product or process innovations in the future. It would be foolish to give away such capability. After these two more strategic factors have been considered, the company's operations performance can be taken into account. Obviously, if its operations performance is already superior to any potential supplier, it would unlikely to outsource the activity. But also, even if its performance was currently below that of potential suppliers, it may not outsource the activity if it feels that it could significantly improve its performance. Now, this figure 6.4 illustrates this decision logic. Two supply network strategies that are often confused are those of outsourcing and offshoring. Now, outsourcing means deciding to buy in products or services rather than perform the activities in-house, while offshoring means obtaining products and services from operations that are based outside one's own country. Of course, one may both outsource and offshore as illustrated in Figure 6.5. Offshoring is very closely related to outsourcing, and the motives for each may be similar. Offshoring to a lower cost region of the world is usually done to reduce an operation's overall cost, as is outsourcing to a supplier who has greater expertise or scale or both. Now, in Figure 6.5, offshoring is very closely related to outsourcing, and the motives for it may be similar. Offshoring to a lower cost region of the world is usually done to reduce an operation's overall cost, as is outsourcing to a supplier who has greater expertise or scale or both. Now, where should an operation be located? Now, there is an old saying in retail operations management: there are three important things in retailing. The first one is location, location, and location. And any retailing operation knows exactly what that means. Get the location wrong, and it can have a significant impact on profits or service. In fact, the same is true for all types of operation. For example, mislocating a fire service station. To continue, I want you to read the short case about HTC moves downstream. Now, to summarize this case, HTC, originally an original design manufacturer, was a key supplier of high-end smartphones for well-known brands and mobile operators like Verizon and Orange. Despite its strong reputation for innovation and reliability, HTC was largely unknown to consumers. To gain more market control and brand recognition, HTC decided to move downstream, transitioning from a supplier to a branded smartphone manufacturer. This strategic shift allowed HTC to compete directly in the consumer marking a significant transformation in its business model. Now, there is an old saying in retail operations management. Now, there are three important things in retailing: the location, and location. And any retailing operation knows exactly what that means. Get the wrong location, and it can have a significant impact on profits or service. In fact, the same is true for all types of operations. For example, mislocating a fire service station can delay fire crews getting to the fires. Setting a data center where potential staff with appropriate skills will not leave will affect its performance. Location decisions will usually have an effect on an operation's cost as well as its ability to serve its customers, and therefore its revenues. Also, location decisions, once taken, are difficult to undo. The cost of moving an operation can be hugely expensive, and the risk of inconveniencing customers very high. No operation wants to move very often. Large units of capacity also have some disadvantages when the capacity of operation is being changed to match changing demand. For example, suppose that the air conditioning unit manufacturer forecasts demand increase over the next 3 years, as shown in figure 6.9, to level off at around 2,400 units a week. If the company seeks to satisfy all demand by building 3 plants, each of 800 units capacity, the company will have substantial amounts of overcapacity for much of the period when demand is increasing. Overcapacity means low capacity utilization, which in turn means higher unit cost. If the company builds smaller plants, say 400 units plants, there will still be overcapacity, but to a lesser extent, which means higher capacity utilization and possibly lower cost. Now, changing the capacity of an operation is not just a matter of deciding on the best size of a capacity increment. The operation also needs to decide when to bring on stream new capacity. For example, in figure 6.10 shows the forecast demand for the new air conditioning unit. The company has decided to build 400 units per week or per week plants in order to meet the growth in demand for its new product. In deciding when the new plants are to be introduced, the company must choose a position somewhere between two extreme strategies. The capacity leads demand, which means the timing the introduction of a capacity in such a way that there is always sufficient capacity to meet the forecast demand. Second is capacity lags demand, meaning timing the introduction of capacity so that demand is always equal to or greater than capacity. Now, figure 6.10 shows these two extreme strategies, although in practice, the company is likely to choose a position somewhere between the two. Each strategy has its own advantages and disadvantages, as shown in the next table 6.4. The actual approach taken by any company will depend on how it views these advantages and disadvantages. For example, if the company's access to funds for capital expenditure is limited, it is likely to find the delayed capital expenditure requirement of the capacity lagging strategy relatively attractive. In Table 6.5, it summarizes the advantages and disadvantages of the smoothing with inventory strategy. Now, I want you to read this work example. Now, a business process outsourcing company is considering building some processing centers in India. The company has a standard call center design that it has found to be the most efficient around the world. Demand forecasts indicate that there is already demand from potential clients to fully utilize one process center that would generate $10 million of business per quarter or 3 months period. The forecasts also indicate that by the quarter 6 there will be sufficient demand to fully utilize one further processing center. The cost of running a single center are estimated to be $5 million per quarter, and the lead time between ordering a center and it being fully operational is 2 quarters. The capital cost of building a center is $10 million, $5 million of which is payable before the end of the first quarter after ordering, and $5 million payable before the end of the second quarter after ordering. How much funding will the company have to secure on a quarter-by-quarter basis if it decides to build one processing center as soon as possible and a second processing center to be operational by the beginning of quarter 6? Now, for the analysis, the funding required for a capacity expansion such as this can be derived by calculating the amount of cash coming into the operation each time period, then subtracting the operating and capital cost for the project each time period. The cumulative cash flow indicates the funding required for the project. In Table 6.6, these calculations are performed for 8 quarters. For the first 2 quarters, there is a net cash outflow because capital costs are incurred but no revenue is being earned. After that, revenue is being earned, but in quarter 4 and 5, this is partly offset by further capital cost for the second processing center. However, from quarter 6 onwards, the additional revenue from the second processing center brings the cash flow positive again. The maximum funding required occurs in quarter 2 and is $10 million. Now, this is the table of the analysis that I read earlier. Now, an alternative view of capacity expansion can be gained by examining the cost implications of adding increments of capacity on a break-even basis. Figure 6.11 shows how increasing capacity can move an operation from profitability to loss. Each additional unit of capacity results in a fixed cost break, that is, a further lump of expenditures which will have to be incurred before any further activity can be undertaken in the operation. The operation is unlikely to be profitable at very low levels of output, eventually assuming that prices are greater than marginal cost. Revenue will exceed total cost. However, the level of profitability at the point where the output level is equal to the capacity of the operation may not be sufficient to absorb all the extra fixed cost of a further increment in capacity. Now, this could make the operation unprofitable in some stages of its expansion. Now here's a work example. A specialist graphics company is investing in a new machine which enables it to make high-quality prints for its clients. Demand for these prints is forecast to be around 100,000 units in year 1 and 220,000 units in year 2. The maximum capacity of its machine the company will buy to process these prints is 100,000 units per year. They have a fixed cost of 200,000 euros per year and a variable cost of processing of 1 euro per unit. The company believes they will be able to charge 4 euro per unit for producing the prints. Now question, what profit are they likely to make in the first and second years? Now year 1 is equals to 100 units, which is there's 1. Therefore, company will need 1 machine. So the cost of manufacturing equals to fixed cost for 1 machine plus variable cost times 100,000. So our fixed cost is 200,000 plus open parentheses 1 euro times this is the cost, the variable cost. The 1 euro is a variable cost times 100,000. So equals 200,000 1 euro times 100, of course 100,000. So 200,000 plus 100,000 is 300,000. So therefore the revenue is equals to demand times price. So that our demand is 100,000 times the price, which is 4 euro. So 100,000 times 4, of course, is equals to 400,000 euro. Now, therefore, profit is equals to 400,000 euro minus 300,000 euro is 100,000 euro. In year 2, demand is equals to 220,000. Therefore, company will need their 3 machines. The cost of manufacturing is equals to fixed cost for 3 machines plus variable cost times 220,000 equals to open parentheses 3, which is your fixed cost for 3 machines, times 200,000 euro plus 1 euro times 220,000. So you have to add 3 times 200,000, which is 600,000 plus 1 times 220,000 is 820,000. So revenue is equals to demand times price. So our demand is 220,000 times the price, which is 4 franc or euro. So 220,000 times 4 euro is equals to 880,000. Therefore, the profit is equals to 880,000 euro minus 820,000, of course, is equals to 60,000 euro. Now note, the profit in the second year will be lower because of the extra fixed cost associated with the investment in the 2 extra machines. To summarize today's discussion, let's answer the key questions. The first question is, why should an organization take a total supply network perspective? Of course, the main advantage is that it helps any operation to understand how it can compete effectively within the network. Now, this is because of supply network. Our supply network approach requires operations managers to think about their suppliers and their customers as operations. It can also help to identify particularly significant links within the network and hence identify long-term strategies or strategic changes which will affect the operation. Second, what is involved in configuring a network? Now, there are 2 main issues involved in configuring the supply network. The first concerns the overall shape of the supply network. The second concerns the nature and extent of outsourcing or vertical integration. Now, what is involved in configuring a supply network? So this is another answer. It's changing the shape of the supply network, and may involve reducing the number of suppliers to the operation so as to develop closer relationships and bypassing or disintermediating operations in the network. Now, this is also another answer. Outsourcing or vertical integration concerns the nature of the ownership of the operations within a supply network. The direction of vertical integration refers to whether an organization wants to own operations on its supply side or demand side. Now, the extent of vertical integration relates to whether an organization wants to own a wide span of the stage in the supply network. The balance of vertical integration refers to whether operations can trade with only their vertically integrated partners or with any other organizations. Where should an operation be located? The stimuli which act on an organization during the location decision can be divided into supply side and demand side influences. Supply side influences are the factors such as labor, land, and utility costs, which change as location changes. Demand side influences include such things as the image of the location, its convenience for customers, and the suitability of the site itself. How much capacity should an operation plan to have? Now, the amount of capacity an organization will have depends on its view of current and future demand. It is when its view of future demand is different from current demand that this issue becomes important. How much capacity should an operation plan to have? When an organization has to cope with changing demand, a number of capacity decisions need to be taken. These include choosing the optimum capacity for each site, balancing the various capacity levels of the operation in the network, and timing the changes in the capacity of each part of the network. Now, the last key questions is how much capacity should an operation plan to have? Now, important influences on these decisions include the concept of economy and diseconomy of scale, supply flexibility if demand is different from the forecast, and the profitability and cash flow implications of capacity timing changes. Now, that concludes our discussion on supply network design. Understanding and optimizing supply networks is crucial for business success. Now, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.